we're always talking about community here. And then, but to actually build community and what it takes to make a community is a lot more than just using the word community all the time. And I really believe that community rests on respect, and that comes from building relationships with each other. And the respect is having respect for ourselves. If you don't respect yourself, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to give respect to anyone else. And have respect for children. And children have an uncanny sense. They're very intuitive. They can tell when we're being duplicitous with them, when we're saying one thing but our actions aren't true to what's coming out of our mouth. They can spot it, they smell it, they seek it out. They know, they're quickly right now, they're trying to find out who are the adults around them that they can trust here, and who are the adults that they feel are going to judge them. So judgment is something that they have a sixth sense for. So I wanted us to look at what are the ways that we can help build those positive relationships with the children. I look at it as that we all have a privilege and an honor to be able to shape children's ability to have positive relationships in their future. So for myself, I think it's nice for all of us to think of who were those positive adults in your own life. Those positive relationships that we had as young children, you carry for your entire life. I mean, I'm 65, and it was like yesterday that I had the older neighbor woman who would just spend time with me in her garden. There are teachers that might have been from second grade who they still stay with. Grandparents. I'm a huge advocate of grandparents. They have that gift of being able to give that undivided attention and time to a child that it's very hard to do when you're a parent. You know, we have so many different demands that we have our work life, sometimes we have multiple children, we have our own personal life that we're trying to figure out who we are still all the time, and you could have a personal relationships that you're going through. So there are so many demands. I mean, you're just trying to figure out, can I make it through the month financially, and I've got to get dinner on the table, and you have a child that is pounding you because they need some attention right now. So these other personal relationships that we have, a grandparent, a neighbor, a teacher, are critical. So I thought it'd be nice for us just to think about who were those personal relationships that we had, what were the attributes that that person gave to you, and how did they make you feel? Because that's what you have the opportunity to do here with the children. For those of you who are working here in the yard, it's getting to know those children. And you can have such an influence. We know children that went to this school 20 years ago, and they still know the first names of different parents here, and they remember the things they said and what it was that they got from those parents. So every day that you have an opportunity to have interaction with a child here, you're making a difference in their life. You're making a difference on how they see themselves, especially because you are an adult and you're caring enough to have a relationship with the child. Is there anyone that would like to share any personal relationships they had with the child when you were children that really helped you in your life? Come on, you guys must have no or yes?
Yeah.
Oh, Kim, what?
My aunt, she was like the cool aunt. She rode horses and she listened to loud music. She would drive around with her windows down and loud music, and she was just like the fun, nice aunt, and we're still really good friends today, but she was someone I could trust and talk to about anything.
So trust. Yeah. That's a good one.
I had an uncle that when he would come to visit, he was like, "Oh, show me your room." Like no one would ever want to see my room. You know, I was like 6 years old, and I showed him how I moved my desk in front of the window, and he just was like, "This is so neat," you know,
like a genuine interest.
In me. And like he and his wife, they would just light up whenever they saw me. So knew I was loved by them.
We found a really good quote that said, every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her. And it's so true. I lost my mom about 1.5 years ago, and that was the thing that like hit me the most, is like my kids just lost their biggest fan. Because they do, like you were saying, they have that time and that energy and the focus without all that other stuff going on, just to like celebrate everything you do and be super interested in everything. So.
And then it's nice to still talk about her. I'm
Yeah.
still always talking about your mom to Chloe and Sophie, keeping her still alive, keeping that memory, and so that they can still carry that feeling of her. I think it's those sustaining relationships that we need when we become adults and go through difficult times, that those sustaining relationships are still with us and give us the strength to go through our hard times. So we were talking about what those lasting impacts are, and the other thing that's different about the children is children perceive relationships in different ways. We don't always know how the children perceive the relationship that we have with them. We might think it's one relationship, but a child might have a completely different perception of what that relationship is. One of the things we were talking about earlier is you can see it as a bank, that there is an emotional bank that we have with our children. And you can put money into that bank, and the way you put that money is by having that time with them, getting to know who the children are, acknowledging the things that the children really enjoy doing, the things that make them stand out. And when we withdraw from that bank is with the nagging and the criticisms, the put downs, the judgments. And it's almost like then, and if there's a child that hasn't had a lot of positive relationships, positive reinforcement, then it's like writing a bad check, because that negativity just builds up for them, and they don't have that resiliency of positive experiences. So once we build up all these positive experiences for a child, if they can have those with the adults, then they will be the children that will have positive relationships with other children.
And with that bank analogy, I think what we need to work on and think about as a community is, how do we allow you guys to make those deposits? We just send the kids out at snack and lunch, and then they're maybe doing things that they're not supposed to, and so you haven't deposited anything in their emotional bank, but you're pulling. Get down off the fence, put your lunch away, all that stuff. So how can we, as a community, be better at allowing you to make those deposits? You know, really get to know the kids, having a connection with them. Because I think that's what we've heard parents say a lot, is the kids won't listen during snack. Why aren't they listening to me? And it's because there's not a relationship, there's not a trust.
I've had even teachers say that to me. How do I get the kids to listen to me? Well, it begins by talking with them. So what are some of the ways we can break and build those relationships? Because I see that some of us really grapple with it, and some of us, we were talking about Aiden. We were talking about how Aiden and we just love social interactions. So he's always building those relationships up, because he's constantly interacting with
we were
other
talking
children.
about his leg earlier. I thought maybe that's what you were bringing up.
And how do we build them? So we really wanted to get some interaction from all of you on how do you build a relationship with the children here. Learn their names. Names are great. Learn their names. And that does take asking them. I think a greeting in the morning when the kids come in. And it makes them feel like they're welcome. Oh, we really missed you. You weren't here yesterday, because we did miss them. There are days we were doing, Lauren wasn't here and James wasn't here, and
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like everything had to stop on Tuesday. No, we can't do the mystery critter in gardening because Lauren and James weren't here and they were so engaged in this mystery critter. So knowing their names, that's where it really begins, I feel. Any other ideas from you guys?
I feel like one of the things, one of the things that I find really valuable and important is that if you say something and then you realize that you were wrong as the adult, or you didn't know something and you said something that was inaccurate, to come back to the child and just, kind of apologize and say, I do
So
it with my own.
acknowledge and apologize?
Yeah.
Or admit mistakes.
Yeah,
Admit
I didn't
mistakes.
know, and we found out, moving on from that space.
Andy, what is the way that you're, you know, all the time. Andy, what are the ways, what are the ways that you connect with the kids?
Well, I mean, acknowledgement's a huge one, right?
I think we seek it as adults.
But Andy, I think what part of what you do and why we fight over who gets you in the classroom is you engage. You take that risk, and it's scary. All of us, we signed up for this. We wanted to work with kids. We wanted to be teachers. You guys are thrown into it, and that might not be a space you're comfortable. But Andy, you jump right in.
But I mean, we were just talking about entrepreneurship and stuff like that, and I think that's a lot about it, is because, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have to face things that you don't want to.
Yeah.
You have to deal with stuff that is like
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, so like this is easy. This is lovely. Like kids bring joy, and
I agree. Kids bring
so
joy.
like, but acknowledgement, and I mean, I man, it's crazy. You look at me because like when you're just sitting there talking about all this stuff. I'm like, man, I need to work on myself.
Andy,
So-
you have fun with the kids.
Yeah.
You have fun. It's really important. Yes, play. I can't emphasize play enough. We see the children playing there, the 5 and 6 year olds, and we're playing all day here. Right now, we play all day. If play doesn't work for you and you might have a hard time with it, this is not the school for you. Because what we strive to do when we're coming up with our plans for the day is how can we make this most engaging and fun? Nobody wants to be tested. There's nothing fun on that. What is it gonna make you feel at the end? You're either gonna boast about something or you're gonna feel like shit.
I had Mary Jo's son in my first class. He's now 25, 26.
28 in a couple
What?
weeks.
No. I'm sorry, he's older than Seth. But when he left RCS, he said, I didn't learn anything. And it was like a punch in the gut. I'm like, and we tried. And but that's the beauty of it. It doesn't always feel like you're learning. It's just a different way to approach things. It's play all the way up until they leave here.
So the other night though, he was there with another 27, 26 year old who went there, and they were all talking about, oh yeah, we learned math in such different ways, and we were all strong in math, and we were all strong in writing, but they couldn't see it until they got
Yeah.
older. They went on to high school and noticed the difference between them and others. And Andy, I think we take it for granted. You take what you're doing for granted. You see it as natural as breathing, but it isn't for everyone. There's a lot of people that are really uncomfortable being with children. Difficulty relating for both of you.
I think what just happened was something that he's naturally good at, that he overlooks, and when you called it out, then he's like, oh, I can see it. And so I think doing that with kids, noticing what they're naturally good at, that they
Noticing.
just don't see,
Yeah.
and being able to call it out and help them build that identity.
Well, I mean, my first thought, you told me like who to, like, you remember? I'll never forget my 3rd grade teacher, Miss Island. because she'd always Monday like I'd return and she'd talk to me about my sports and all that stuff. And my second grade teacher, oh man, she killed my education for a minute, like essentially. So she just brought me up and made me feel amazing. It was like, wow.
She knew
like,
what your interests
no, but
were.
like you said, like when the kids walk in, like just like, hey, you know, she would like talk to me and like engagement.
Because the connection, some children really need a connection with their teacher and other adults, but that connection, my son, without that connection, literally he could not learn. So the teachers that connected with him, he absorbed everything. So I think that not everyone realizes that children need connection in order to really absorb.
To thrive.
And to thrive.
Right. Ability to thrive.
And
you have to
connecting
have
is,
connection.
knowing who you're with, and having those.
Somebody I love following, he says, you're not ready to teach a child until you know 10 things about them. And it's so true. Like we spend those first 2 weeks getting to know them, building that trust, building that relationship, because you have to pull on what they're good at or what they're interested in or the things you have in common with them in order to do anything else. It's that foundation.
Kaya loves Minecraft and that. So anyway, all the kids love Minecraft. So I find myself, my kids are, came after all that stuff. But I find that I have to go on the internet and try to find out about these things to learn more, so I can have a conversation, because I don't even know what the words are that they're saying. Heaven forbid I have to write one of the words. I can't spell them. And even just today, Carrie and I were checking in with the children about what books they would like in our library and what are the books that they enjoy reading. And Kaya had brought a book for his brown bag. And so we sat down and I immediately ordered the book and ordered a couple more books made by the same series.
You're giving Jay anxiety.
And, but those are the things that mean so much to the children. Like, wow, you're acknowledging me right now. And what I feel and I think and I want is important. And they're not little things. I mean, all of us in this room want that acknowledgement and want to feel like we matter and people care about us. And if you want your child to become a caring person, they first have to learn that they're cared for. So when I look at schooling, and we've always said from the day we opened our doors that that's our primary focus at this school. And it doesn't always look clean, it's messy, but it is on how do we connect with one another, because in the end that's what it's all about, is how do we make connections as a community, as a citizenship, how do we make them have a voice. I wish Diana was here. We were talking about Izzy. As last year, they had the bunch of the kids in Crystal's class predominantly were starting a kindness committee. Well, the kindness committee wasn't really very kind. Because it became a little exclusive. There was that little power thing about it, having a kindness committee. But the intentions were very good, because they were feeling that there was unkindness coming from, they were hearing words. There are some words that are just very harsh, and I tell the kids when they say certain words, ooh, that's a really harsh word. That's a hard word for me. Those are hard words for us in like war and killing and death and atom bombs, those kind of things. They're harsh words. There's nothing wrong with saying that to children. They are going to use those, but that's where the girls were coming from. And so they want the kindness committee. And it's really in helping them see how you can do little acts of kindness all through the day. And it's those little acts that make the biggest difference. Who was the parent that was telling us about a child that was at another school and they were helping kids out by somebody dropped a pencil and they went over and picked it up for the child and gave it to them. The teacher scolded them for getting out of their seat.
AJ.
Yeah.
Oh, AJ, yes, right. And yet what we've seen in AJ since he came here are such kindness and empathy that he has given to other children. He's been in some situations where his partners in a group are having a really hard time and might become explosive. And he's right there helping them out. Or I think of Maddox today, when a child in the class was feeling not heard. And Maddox is like, well, I'll be with you. Come on over here. Those are acts of kindness that, sometimes people think that they have to make bracelets to be an act of kindness. No, the act of kindness is letting someone come into your cooking class or eat something in cooking class when really it wasn't their cooking day.
Wait, that can happen?
We're putting a stop to that. So what are the things that break? I mean, there's so many. We can keep going, I'm sure. Mary, weren't you going to say something else about building?
It was just sort of building on what you guys were talking about, like you listen and you observe and you get to know where they're, like how you said the thing about Kaya and Minecraft. Like find out what's very meaningful to them and then take the time maybe on your own to learn more about whatever that is, so you can come back and like show them that you care and you'll make that extra effort. Like those Wings of Fire that they're all crazy about. So it's like I took the time, I went online, I got to like kind of know like the spark notes of it or whatever. So like when they're having those conversations or that play, I could kind of
they light up.
Let them know. Yeah, it makes their day. It's like wow, you're in touch with what's going on and what's meaningful to them. So,
Yeah, reading the books that they enjoy. Yeah, take a Warriors book home and reading it and trying to figure out all the cats means that you care. And then what are some of those things that break?
For building, I was gonna say trust, and not them to trust us, but also us to trust them. And then I guess the breaking would be that too, through actions or reactions, maybe.
And then this is really our reactions to things. The difference in responding to something versus reacting. As parents and in a relationship as an adult, it's really hard. It's sometimes in those adult relationships we react so quickly instead of responding, and there's such a distinction between that. So how we react. Safety.
I was just thinking about that with Barb. I mean, Barb is the one they go to when they want a Band-Aid or an ice pack, because Barb, oh my gosh, she doesn't, make them upset or like cry or make a big deal. Like if they come to me and they're bleeding, I'm like, oh! But she's very calm, and it's so wonderful. Like I want to come to her when I get a cut. She takes that time to get them an ice pack or a Band-Aid and like dry off their wound, and it's such a sweet thing to see, and it builds such a nice relationship with the kids. The school nurse, yeah. For the breaking part, I think there's things that we don't often think about, and I know for myself, I was super guilty of it today, because I was trying to print something on my phone for the next break, but just being on your phone. I don't think that's our intention, to break community or break that trust with the children, but it really shows them, this is more important to me right now.
Even if for 10 seconds, they think you've been on the full time. Yeah.
In a family, there needs to be time when nobody's looking at screens. I know we talked about this probably at orientation. It seems like as if it was so recently that we talked about putting your phone away. And if you have teenagers in the house, having them put their phones away and you just play a game together. All you need is a deck of cards to play a good game. But playing those games or reading a book, even watching a good movie. So often I see that children are even reading books and watching movies that are really beyond what they should be digesting at this time. But those are the things you share together. We used to do this long drive from downtown here constantly, and I'm a news person, but I never listened to the news when we had our kids. We didn't have TV then, but we would just listen to stories, and it was a way for us to make it. We had shared stories together. So then you could get the parking lot or even get home, and you'd just stay in the car to keep listening to the story. and it's something you share together. It's hard, I think it becomes harder and harder in our world to find those things that you can share with your child.
I guess my wife's favorite time was the car because the kids are stuck with her. So she could get stuck with her. All right, it was good today. That's it. But her, she just like, yeah, she loves that part of the day.
And
But
you
the
don't
whole-
probably feel as much out on the spot as when you're just sitting there at a table talking.
Right. But the whole phone thing comes down to being present.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like you go to a park these days, and I mean, I don't even know how many people will be on the phone over being with their kids.
Yeah.
I was talking with someone today, and I said that when I was a parent of young children, it was Tony. Tony and I were having a conversation. And I said every time I went to a park, I felt like an alien. Like I just couldn't connect with the other parents, and so I always found that being here was my tribe. Was where I could connect as a parent, because parenting is a tough journey. Now, when your children are young, it is hard. We always say those are the years you really need to just pause everything and enjoy, because you're going to miss them so tremendously. But it's also a very lonely and hard time, I think, because there's so many other things going on for you, and then all of a sudden one day they're gone, and you look at each other and go, oh, I mean, you're here still. Like all of a sudden you realize your partner is still there with you. What do you say? Oh.
Didn't apply.
So yeah, those are. You need to stick together through that hard, long journey.
But what I think is like critical or criticisms.
Yeah, the criticisms. I think you're really just trying to find a word I can't get in this spell. Judgments.
Assumptions.
Ooh.
Expectations.
Expectations.
Ooh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody needs to learn about that, adults and everybody.
Tone, like tone of voice.
About being dismissive of their feelings or invalidating what they're thinking.
Not following through.
You guys know these more.
Sometimes our own agenda can break presence.
Throwing a paper away that was super important to me.
Breaking their diorama,
That happened 10 years ago at least.
I like to throw things away.
Yeah, you do.
I saw your dad driving away at the preschool like 10 arts from.
He keeps them all. He keeps them all. He's like, you want these today? Still don't want them now.
And then I think about the children who push our buttons. There are children that just demand more attention. They become explosive. They become aggressive. They're oppositional. They're unmotivated. We can go, those are the children that really need this more than they need this. They need the building. They need the building so much. So every time you have a child that kind of like pushing your buttons, I always think about there's something I need to learn here.
Yes.
There's something going on. This child's been brought into my life for a reason, and it's not so much the child, it's I that need to work on myself and how I respond to the child. And by doing that, for the children that are pushing our buttons, they need even more of our time, more of our effort, more of our commitment to being with them, because they're depleted. Their bank is empty. For a child to feel all that is because they're not getting the good feelings. And when you have those good feelings, then you do feel self-confident. You feel like you are reliant, you're independent. That makes all of us feel good. When we don't have confidence, none of us are going to feel good, doesn't matter what age we are. And it's going to show up in different ways. And you can see it in your adult relationships, when we become defiant with one another, not able to listen to each other. It's because there's something else going on inside us. So those are the children that I feel for all of us, we have to take the extra time, go out and seek them out, spend more time with them. It's really easy for us, I mean, we all know, children that can be very easy to be with, and then there are some children that we just are having a harder time with. So those are the ones I'm gonna ask all of us, instead of talk about, oh, yes, this child is so difficult. Let's talk about, wow, this is a child that I really wanna just spend some time with and sit with them instead of just judging them.
Because you really do have an opportunity to be, one of those people that you thought about when we first asked. Who are those people that you remember? Like, now's the time. Now, you have 8 hours a month. Is that what it is? at RCS.
Yeah.
To really be present.
My son-
10.
My
Even more.
taught, what's her name? Molly.
Oh, our kindergarten teacher? Yeah.
But because of how Cole was, she learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She learned a lot just from having, she had a lot of interesting children in her classroom, but just from my son, she learned a lot. And I know you learned a lot too from Cole. You learned that if you punish him, does he do worse?
That's a good point.
And he did. I was Mary Jo, and she was like, I go, well, what happens when you make him go to another classroom? She's like, actually, he gets worse. And I'm like, yeah. The more he felt punished, the more he was overwhelmed and got worse. And really, the boy was just tired and hungry.
And overwhelms the right word to use.
Yeah, it's very stimulating place. So everyone learned a lot from that, and they just redirected him and started redirecting him, and they learned a lot about that type of child through Cole. Okay, let's just have him go sharpen a pencil when he seems like he's not knowing what to do, instead of punishing.
I remember there was a child here, a young boy, who was always our errand boy. Because he had a hard time being in the classroom, any classroom. And so we would just think of things to get him to be able to walk and go to other classrooms. So he just really saw himself as, he was a messenger. He was a school messenger.
Yeah. But Nicole, that's a really good example, because it's those students that we learn so much for. There was another student in Cole's class, and I'll never forget this because I learned so much from that student. We were going to Eschaton to sing, and he got in the back of my car and he was like, it's so tight. And I was like, my dad was just in that car and he's like 6 foot tall and he was fine. And it wasn't about who it's tight for and who it's not tight for. Like, for him, it was tight. Like, it's not for me to say that wasn't how it was for you. And I didn't say that out loud to the kid, like, you're fine. But in my head, I was like, but it's just those moments with those difficult situations where you learn so much. And I think about that moment all the time. Like, that is his perception. It does not matter how anybody else feels sitting in that car.
Perception's a good word too. I'm not sure where it goes.
Yeah.
But they do, and Mary Jo taught me that as well. Like, wow, this child really does think this is how it happened, and I know how it happened.
Yeah.
But if I tell him how it happened, then I'm judging him, and I'm putting assumptions on him, and I'm reacting. I'm doing all these things that is not going to help him.
And that's where the languaging comes in. Like, I believe that's what you heard. I understand. This child saw something else, I saw something else, but it's not, it's still valuing what they said and acknowledging it. Like, it's very possible that everybody has a different perspective, and not to argue over that piece, but like, how do you move forward is really important.
So the children who you're having a hard time, really look at, because that means it's touching on an emotional response. You have an opportunity to make a difference in an emotional response. So just pause. Pause for a moment with it.
And children may have special needs that you don't know about.
Thank you for bringing that up. Right.
That I'm now learning with new diagnosis of my child, things that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been looking at you this way this whole time. And this is what you were actually thinking.
And feeling.
Whoa, so sometimes we have no idea, they may look a certain way, but there's actual things going on inside.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Today there was a child in Carrie's class who got very upset because they just felt like they're always last with everything. You know, the last to be chosen for anything, the last for buddies to hook up with. And though they're not, it's their perception. And that's the most dominant.
Yeah.
So even if other people are chosen after them, their perception is that they weren't first. So for them, if they're not first, they're last.
And what would you say to them?
We talked about how it does feel that way, and there
Yeah.
is always going to be a first, and there's always going to be a last. One of the things we were talking about earlier was winners and losers. So I'm not a competitive person. I'm always trying to, you know, calm down some Crystal. Because there is this whole thing on winning and losing. You know, we play games, and there are some winners, and they get really, sometimes they just jump out of their seat. They're like a kangaroo. And it makes the other group who didn't win feel really poorly. And so we talk about that there's always going to be someone that scores a bit higher. But who was it that just said, was it Kenzie or who said yes, but it all has to do, maybe it was Eliza. It was Eliza. Eliza just broke it up and just said, you know, it's just about having fun. But that's something that they have to constantly be reminded of, because if they're fixating on that winning and losing, then there isn't any fun in it.
And you wouldn't do something such as list all the times that child got to go first, or
No.
all the times
Right,
they
right,
won
right.
or
You
lost.
wouldn't do
That's
that.
not the point. It's all about that perception, and so it's just a completely different conversation of acknowledging, yeah, that's rough. I don't like to lose either. So.
And then that person had 2 kids in the classroom that, you know, well, just got up on their own. Said, well, I will be with you. We'll do this with you. Right, you can't, the perception only happens through experiences, that you can change perceptions. So you guys are all with the kids. There must be things that are going on that some of you are questioning or having a hard time with.
Slide. We did get some feedback from people that I wanted to talk about. Keep
How to
going,
respond.
please. Oh, the how to respond. Thank you. Yeah. So I think more things will come up as the year progresses, but these are some things that people wanted to discuss. Do you like my work? They're looking for that approval and that validation, and hopefully you guys have read that Alfie Cohen article that goes with the registration packet about, what is it, 10 reasons to stop saying good job, or 20 reasons, I don't know, it's some reasons. And part of that is we don't want them looking to us for validation. So parents wanted tools. What do you say when the kid comes up and says, do you like my work? Does anybody yeah? Nicole?
Well, I'm not really good at it.
Yeah, I really love it.
I say, oh, but the colors you use, did you have fun, drawing that, or
Yeah.
Or did you have a good time doing that? And then it kind of distracts them from it.
Yeah.
They never really pushed me too much and kept asking the same question, but I usually go that direction. It's like, oh, look, those colors are super interesting. Did you have fun? And it just kind of distracts them from that.
Yeah. It's so funny. I've stuck to this philosophy. My daughter Chloe, her whole 10 years of life, and she will still come up to me, do you like this? And don't say, well, do you like it? Why are you still asking me? You're still.
You can always say, tell me about it.
Yeah.
There's always a story behind it.
Yeah.
If you say, tell me about it, it just distracts.
Yep.
Right, it's changing the direction of the path you're on.
Like, what was your favorite part?
Yes.
Or I saw you working so hard on that, something like that.
Yeah. We really want them to have that internal motivation, and so they start out coloring or doing something because it brings joy to them. They're interested. They were drawn to that project, and then when we comment on it, it just it can change things. It can change the things, and we need to think about what our intention is too. Are we saying, oh, you're doing a really good job on that because they're being quiet and they're out of your hair for a moment? Sometimes it can be manipulative, the reason why we're commenting on that work, because we want them to keep doing it. And so it's that hard part of just being quiet.
And do we really want them to score a goal for me?
Right.
I mean, I do not want my daughter looking at me when she does something good on the soccer field.
Yeah.
That's my goal in life. Like, it should be for her, not for me, not for anybody else. So, that's what your goal is. But yeah, no matter how hard you try, they still ask.
Or not, or you can have the opposite, and
Everything.
one that could care really less about.
That's great.
Their approval.
The other thing that came up from parents is water play. You really have to check in with the children. We've had tears because somebody didn't want to be squirted with the hose, but they really want to be next to the pond that you're digging and filling. So it's just empowering them to use their voice and make sure you're helping them. Well, can you let Kimberly know that you don't want to be sprayed with the hose? Instead of me as the adult saying, Kimberly, she doesn't want to be sprayed. So making sure to give them that power. You let them know you don't want to be sprayed. And then if you're out there working on the sand yard and you don't want to be sprayed, that's okay. You can say that too.
I say it all the time.
Yeah. I don't want to get wet.
I would say to go with that is sometimes the kid who is being told like I don't want to be sprayed. Sometimes they don't acknowledge that they've heard that. So then I always, as the adult, check in. Did you hear that Ian doesn't want to be sprayed?
Yes.
Because sometimes they do, but there's no acknowledgement that they did.
Yeah.
And so it's unclear if they're going to listen to you or not.
Yeah.
So I think that helps a lot too.
And then there can be the defiance where a child hears it and they're still gonna squirt everyone around them.
Yep.
And then when
They heard you. I'm still gonna do
Go
it.
with that too is the kid that doesn't want to be sprayed, remind them also you're in an area where
Yes.
there's water.
Thank
So
you. Yes.
they may not spray you, but you may
Right.
want to remove yourself so you may accidentally,
Yes.
you know.
Because there is an area where there's a lot of water stuff going on.
Yeah.
So what else could you do so that you don't get
Yeah.
Yeah. It's dry over there.
And the good part with that is that we do want them to come up with the solutions. So putting that back on them, what can you do? Kind of like if the sun, is in your eyes, what can we do to change that?
This one comes up quite a bit, just the body language. I noticed kids will be running around and they look like they're having fun, but if I stop them sometimes, like, is this okay with you? No. It's like, well, how is this person supposed to know? Because to me, you have a big smile on your face, and when I see you, it looks like you're having a lot of fun. And they're terrified. They're ready for it to be done. They're just, there's something there where their emotions don't match sometimes. And so it's very confusing. And sometimes the children don't know how to say stop. They know the other person's having fun with this chase game, and they want that for them. And so they keep going without really checking in with themselves, like, do I want to keep playing? Is this okay with me? And then the other thing is if you don't feel comfortable with it, if it is too rough, you know, there's a lot, we don't want children pulling on clothes or anything below the neck, above the neck. So I would never come up if somebody's, you know, pulling a shirt or has their hands, I would say, is this okay with you? For me, I would just say, stop.
Right.
This isn't okay with me. This doesn't feel safe. Even if the other kid's smiling, like, this looks like fun, but no. I think this place is hard because sometimes people see it as kind of a free-for-all and let's let kids figure it out, but they do need those reminders and they do need boundaries and they need support in voicing their needs sometimes.
Self-regulating.
Self-regulating.
They need help in regulation. There's the child that gets very upset about someone chasing them, and I'll say, well, all you have to do is stop running. And they don't realize
They
that.
don't realize it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, it's a nervous system response. It's like,
Yeah,
it's chasing you. It's just like, you know, and then the brain is just offline. And so
And there's also a logical consequence of getting caught if they stop.
Yeah.
They may not wanna actually be caught.
Yeah.
Because they do know what could happen at the end.
Sharing.
Sharing has come up. Do we have an article about
We have a
sharing?
whole
in our-
book on sharing.
I know, but there's somebody that writes a really good, is there anybody that doesn't know why we don't do sharing?
Forced sharing.
Forced sharing, sorry,
Right.
forced sharing, yeah. Everybody
And have
kinda
any
knows.
of you been hit with the sharing thing, especially with the swing? There's one special swing here that everybody likes to use. And there are children that will stay on that swing for a half hour easily. And some other kids will start almost crying that I've been waiting for that swing. We're like, well, let them know, and when they're done, they'll come get you. There's a whole line of kids waiting for the swing.
So that child that's on the swing, there could be multiple reasons they're on that. Maybe it is a power struggle, and they're winning. Great. So let's give them all that power for 30 minutes that day and 30 minutes the next day, and eventually they'll get off the swing. But what I love about this place is we give that to them. You get it until you're done with it. You can be on that swing all day. We're not going to set a timer and say you have it for 5 minutes and then you have to give it to Emery for 5 minutes. There's none of that. They get it until they're done, and it's the same with the hoses and the shovels.
And there's things that children are working on.
Yeah.
That's what it is. When you see that, they're working on something. And then I will see that once they've kind of figured out that that other person's now gone away, then they'll just give it up and go find the person and give it to them.
You just asked if we knew why. I think everyone knows why except me.
Oh no! Yeah, we want them. It takes away the power struggle of it. And were you gonna say something?
Also, like adults, if you are using something, I say, hey, Kimberly, can I have that? You're not going to stop to give me right away. You will tell me, say, yeah, after I'm done, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for children. We respect them as.
Thank you, Jay.
Good
So
point.
we use that
Very
phrase
good
all the
point.
time.
Yeah.
When they're done, they'll come get you. They'll let you know.
Works great with siblings too. Just an understanding.
I think because you want them to want to share, and you want that desire to share to come from within, not to come from the external. Like, no, you need to give it to them, and then it's like, then you start a conflict between the two because it wasn't there. Yeah, there's the resentment of it. So to have it come naturally.
And
authentically.
And I love what Bev always used to say, because that's a philosophy they have next door at the preschool, is, they could be right on the edge of figuring out they've got the hoses and the shovels and they figured out this elaborate digging system, and then they're right on the edge of discovering something, figuring it out, and just this powerful moment, and sorry, it's Amber's turn for the hose, and you just take it away.
What I learned next door out of that was you have to learn to own before you share.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And everyone has a different time frame.
You have to learn to own before you can share. What does that mean, to learn to own?
You have to
That
feel
they have it. They feel like they.
A sense of mastery.
a sense of ownership. I have this. This is mine.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna take it away from me. Like just that.
You can only share it if it's yours.
Well, and especially over at the preschool developmentally, it's kind of like where they're like everything is theirs. The whole school is theirs, and they're like, who are all these people that are coming to play with my swings and my blocks? It's like, what is going on? So it's like they have to understand. It's like before they're ready to share.
Right.
Just
So
have
that's
that
what they
feeling.
said. It's mine.
Exactly.
Beth, do you guys have a lot of that in your room?
Yeah. I have a great example today. Actually, just in our closing circle, we made new sensory bottles, and they're a big hit. Everybody wants it, but there's 2 new ones, and somebody wanted it, somebody else was using it. So in the middle of the circle, we had a conversation. So and so, will you let so and so know when it's done? When you're done? Yep. And she was adamant. She wasn't letting this thing go. As soon as that transaction happened and we moved on to Rose and Thorn, she handed it right to her. She wanted to be the one to decide that she was done.
There it
and
is.
she was
They
ready
want to decide. And giving them that decision making is huge. It's a big power. Sometimes it just takes that moment, and then all of a sudden it's just gone. They're fine.
So also with ownership too, is if the adult is constantly taking it away, like in 5 minutes you've gotta give it to that person, and then they don't have ownership. It's like sinking sand, like you never really know.
Yeah.
And so they don't ever have ownership because they're like, well, is that gonna get taken away, is that? But once they feel like they can own it for as long as they want, then it's like, okay, now I don't have to worry about somebody taking it away. I can give it when I'm ready for it.
We had a moment this morning in Beth and Tony's class. There was a group of children and they were all making this game. They had like some seats set up to make like a bus or something. And there was this other child that really wanted to participate and they kept trying to come over and like find a way to, you know, involve themselves. But it was one of those judgment call situations of it's like you want to be respectful of their play. And those kids were not exactly ready to allow this kid to join at the moment. So it was like kind of finding the language to, you know, honor that kid's desire to participate, but also, you know,
give them the right to say you don't have to play with anyone, and that's
exactly
hard.
That
very hard one.
exclusive thing becomes very hard when it's out. I mean, you're seeing it in the classroom, but then it becomes these exclusive clubs they might form out in the playground with sand things, and that one does become very difficult. You know, how hierarchy of bosses, and you have to interview to get jobs, to go into the sand fort, and you're fired. That's a big one. You're fired by people. And they're really role modeling. And when I think about how when the kids are playing, especially the younger kids are in Tony's and Beth's class, and they might play for days and days with maybe the playhouse or the actual playhouse or a dollhouse or with water, whatever. They're trying out roles and relationships, and they need to try those out again and again and again. And sometimes the adults were like, aren't you done doing that? Could you move on to maybe do some numbers or writing? But it's so critical because they're really mimicking all of us. They're trying out the different roles that they see all of us do in our life, and they do it at their level.
It's a great example to use our class for that. That same game Mary's referencing today has been going on for the last 2 weeks, and right when it's time to go to snack, they just set up their bus. And they're so disappointed every day because we still haven't been able to ride the bus. And so it's funny because you see them every day thinking, wait, let's not spend time doing this because we want to ride the bus today. And so they're like time management, like working it out and figuring out how do we make this happen today. It's very cute.
Nobody eat today.
Yeah. Nobody has to.
But they're learning in that process. That's so important and will carry them for so long. All the other stuff they're going to learn, numbers, letters, science, history, it doesn't take a long time to learn any of those things. If you have this solid foundation of who you are, and you get that through play. So it's honoring each of those developmental levels and knowing that what we're trying to provide to them is what they need at this time in their life. You do have to have faith in your children. They are amazing, amazing people. Just give them the time to grow. Oh, a couple more of these things. Injuries.
So fostering independence is a huge, huge goal of ours. A great way to do that, please don't carry your child's backpack for them, their lunch boxes, their shoes. They really, and I'm so guilty of it because you guys know my daughter throws her stuff everywhere. But they need that independence, and if they forget their shoes and they can't go somewhere after school, it's a consequence of that. But they need practice being responsible for their things. The other thing with that too, the independence, we don't ever put children on a swing. We don't ever put them in a tree. Our belief is that if they can get up, they can get down. So if you put them up there, then they can't get down. And so one day they'll be able to. And they just have to keep working on it and wait for it. But we really want them doing those things independently. We don't pick up the children here.
Don't carry them on your shoulders.
Yeah.
They all want to be carried on your shoulders. If you can carry 30 children at one time on your shoulders, great, but get ready to carry the whole school and the teachers. It's really signaling out a special thing for one child, and you can't give it to all of them. Yeah. So injuries. We didn't talk about injuries also. So Jay goes through boxes and boxes of Band-Aids at this school. I always thought it'd be great to have a graph of how many Band-Aids we go through a day. Children are always hurting themselves, and that actually, it's good. It means they're taking risks, and it's what you do as a child. It's a lot worse, Michelle, if you fall down than if any of the, than if any of the children. It's scary as an adult to fall down. It's a much bigger fall for us.
Yeah.
But the kids are gonna fall down. It's a part of childhood. It's one of the things you remember as a child, going around with, skin knees all the time. So we don't make a big thing of it, even if it is a big deal. And we can tell right away it's something that's gonna need stitches, it might have something broken. They respond to how we react to things. So if you're not good with that, then I would just say, hey, would you mind coming over here? And would you mind coming over here and work with this child? So find a person that can work with the child and still keep it really cool and keep everything level. And the children, the kids, the great thing that I like about it is if you really stay with it over a period of time, you just come up to this older class and you'll see how they hold themselves, and the children love to help each other. They all know where all the rice babies and the ice packs are here. And they like nothing more than, it's 10 kids running to the freezer to get ice packs. That's what we want, is for them to help one another. So if we could just keep it kind of downplay their injuries. The boundary check during play, is that when they're
I think that's what we
each
talk,
other?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Next play. Is there anything else that's coming up for the parents that are working here, or kids coming home and telling you horrible stories that you can't believe? There is a sheet I came across, and Jay was going to have a parent retype it tomorrow because the font's so poor, but so when children come to you for help, don't solve the problem for them. This is the richness of the opportunity of them to think of solutions for the problem. It's going to mean a lot more to them if they're the solution finder. Otherwise, they're always going to come to you to find their solutions when they're 16 and you really want them to do it. So, there's a few children, you'll get to know who they are real quickly, that love to be the police. We have a lot of policemen, and we do have people that like to report. They like to report on everything that people are doing. So you can just say to them, well, are you just telling, right, are you telling me, just sharing this information with me, or are you wanting help with this? So quite often they're looking for us as being this enforcer, like we're gonna come out there with our battle gear on. And we'll just say, well, if you don't like, you can go talk to him, let him know. Because really it's not bothering us, whatever's going on, but it's bothering this particular child. So they need to go tell the other person. Usually it's a person that's very rule oriented, and they feel like everybody should follow the same rules that they're carrying within themselves. We don't have to keep the children happy all the time. They're all going to experience being sad and being upset and being frustrated, and all you can say is, I feel for you. I've also have felt that way. You can empathize with them. I want them to be able to sit with their discomfort. That's a very important thing to do, is to sit with discomfort, sit with boredom. Your child's bored? Great. Come to me later and tell me about what you figured out. Don't feel like you have to make them unboard. Be careful what you're doing to solve your child's problems. I'd really have them solve more of their own. Because we fall into these rescuing behaviors with children.
When we do it with our jobs all day, we're always fixing problems.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to shut it down and just listen. And I remind myself every day, did my friend want me to just listen? Give her advice. I think I just gave her like a bunch of advice that she probably didn't want. So we struggle as adults too, but the same with our kids, you always want to solve it, because you come straight from work and you're like, I don't solve like 10 problems in 5 minutes so I can solve this, but really you just, I'm sorry that felt like that today.
And with the children, sometimes they just want to tell you, they just want to talk.
Yeah, that's what you felt like that.
That's all I can think of.
everything's going great on the sand yard. No.
The
I
thing
always-
is-
weeks in.
I've always been the kid that looks for sure upset, but he doesn't wanna talk to me. I've, like, all these, however many years I've been here. I'm fine, but clearly he's not fine. And I know I'll go and I'll let somebody know, I'll let a teacher know, or at least his teacher or hers. But I just always struggle with that, you know, because you know you wanna be there for them, do we need to, you know, especially if you kinda saw maybe what the altercation was, do we wanna go talk to them, I try all that, they just
So
don't.
Noni, I think it goes back to, or Noni, sorry, Nicole. It goes back to, we need to find time to build those relationships with the
Also,
kids.
It's just like adults, like you're probably married to someone who does the opposite, someone who wants to fix it right now, and then another person that you're married to needs space. And so it's the same with kids, some kids just want the space.
Yeah, that's a hard thing too. Like
And
your
I don't
child
know,
might
I
be
don't know.
might want
Yeah.
something completely different than the child you're trying to help.
And sometimes the child really does want attention. I've seen kids sit with that kind of brooding, you don't know, get away, I don't wanna talk to you, but really, they do want someone with them. And by being that way, it's kind of calling attention to them, but then to be able to trust and to open up. It's hard for them to open up, even if they trust you, it's hard to open up for some children, to let it all out. Cause quite often it's coming from other stuff that's going on, it can be stuff that's coming out, that's going on completely outside of school. So what you'll see going on in dynamics at school are things that are going on for children also outside of school.
Sometimes in those scenarios, at least with my child anyway, I'll start talking, if I approach them and they're like, no, you know, don't talk to me or whatever, I'll start maybe talking to them about something else other than like, are you okay, please tell me, you know. And maybe not redirect them, but just start talking to them about something else. And then like maybe 5 minutes later in, and they'll be like, this is what was wrong, you know, like just
That
showing
spotlight
them.
in the moment they couldn't.
Yeah, just showing them that you're there, that you're present with them, and you can listen to them. Or if they're not ready, then okay, well, I'll just talk to you about what I'm feeling like today, you know. And then they say it.
That's always worked for me too with kids when I work with kids, and like if you kind of just you're there with them and you change the subject a little because they don't want to talk about it to something easier, kind of like you just said, and then they feel more comfortable and then they just kind of let it out. And so that's like my favorite technique with kids too. Yeah.
The other hard one, Nicole, when you're talking about the kids that it's hard, is the children who are alone and just have a hard time making the social connections. Entering into play is so scary. Entering into friendships when you don't know how you're going to be accepted by another person is so scary. So it's that way of how do we help the children enter into play and finding that comfortable. It's a tough one.
And then watching them grow and it's so awesome. The ones that were like this and then all of a sudden they're totally playing with everybody, you're like, oh my god. Great.
Well, thank you all for everything that you bring to us here. We don't do any of it without you.
Thank you.
I know we had some business.
Oh yeah, just a couple things of business.
Oh, you're counting.
Oh,
I was like, what is she nodding?
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them why you're counting? It's
Yeah,
so
okay.
scary.
I just want to make sure
We have some couple other business.
We have a couple business.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the business things I'm thinking about is it's really fun to be. I mean, once the kids have gotten through that first day, you know, being awkward, then they just want to stay. What's interesting is they like to get out of the classroom when they're in the classroom. When they're out of the classroom, they want nothing more than to get back into the classroom. It's a little game we play all day. The same thing happens at 3 o'clock. They all really just want to stay here. It's especially fun after 3 o'clock because no one's really watching them. Teachers are in the classroom, parents are talking with each other, and for the children, it's like being on a prairie. It's freedom land. They love it. We do ask families to please try to leave campus. If you can leave